Hello, hello. How you guys doing? Welcome to Within the Cauldron. Today, we're going to talk about a good topic, elemental alignment. I think it's very important for all of us to know, whether you're a beginner or an experienced practitioner. Elementals are very important, to build that alignment and keep that alignment going. How you doing, Nico?
Doing good yourself?
I'm doing fine. Feel like I've been running a rat race, but that's life. So you excited about tonight's topic?
Oh yeah.
Well, I've been thinking about this. We did that energy working a while back, about how to create energy balls and, how to actually use it. But what about the next step? You know, how do we build up these alignments, this friendship, this spiritual, how do I use the primal energies and stuff like that? Do we even understand it? I've
Oh
been
yeah. Good
practicing
stuff.
for 30 some odd years and I'm still an infant in it. You know, I still rely upon these practices that I've done. But what I did throughout the years, since I'm so much with the public and been teaching at the UU church, was to come up and devise a way for people who are interested in witchcraft, and I don't have to break my oaths to actually build alignments, which does work. That
Oh
they
yeah.
really work. But let me go from here. Okay, I want to show you something here. If I can get it to come up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoops, wrong one. Sorry, sorry. Okay, here we go. Add to stage. Okay, this one's for spirit. Okay, I got this years ago. I can't remember, but it's very important that we have a way to actually visually see it, because when we visually see it, we can attune ourselves to the element that we are looking for. I recommend that everybody draw out what they deem as their connection with earth, air, fire, water, and spirit.
Mhm.
To me, that's very important. Let's see here. Trying to figure out what Chrissy. There we go. Yeah, just take your time, draw them out. They don't have to be perfect. You know, doesn't have to be, you know, artist rendering, but try to actually connect with them. And the biggest problem I find with a lot of people is that they let a mental block, their physical, mental um, spirit,
Mhm.
be stubborn where they can't reach out. What I recommend doing is draw what you just saw out, but also light up a candle. Color code your candles. And do not set your house on fire or your rug. Don't do something stupid. Be responsible.
Oh
Have
yeah. Use fire safety. Have appropriate candle holders, a burn plate, or a table that's fireproof.
yes, exactly. I don't know how long, we will be on about this subject, but I'd like to do a progressive lessons for people that I've done with the public, with the UU church, to help people find their way in the craft. Now, when we are doing this, you want to make sure that you ritually clean your area.
Mhm.
It's very important that people cast salt, that they actually cleanse their area, that they are going to do their magic, their alignments. Take very strong stances on protecting yourself. And that's why for the beginner, I recommend using salt. Clean your area, surround yourself with a circle of salt, and sit there and take these little sigils or images, and actually start aligning yourself by the same way as if you was going to center and ground, which you're going to do anyway. Center and ground, and sit there, light your candle with intention. Okay. When you're first beginning, you're not going to know about anointing or stuff like that. But your intent, anoint your candle with olive oil and take some salt and rub around it. Just roll it into salt. Place it into your candle holder. And for each one, north, east, south, west, yellow for east, red for south, blue for water, which is west, and green for north. And do this one at a time. You don't have to light them up all at one big time, because what you're trying to do is build rapport. Because we're dealing with these primal energies. And I think a lot of times witches forget to use primal energies, which to me is very important, because nature is the witch's best friend. Definitely. But put your candles and your sigils in front of you. Make these emblems that I made, and I'm sure that you have some too that you personally use. But draw them out on a little piece of cardstock or something, and go to that quarter. Face the quarter that you are trying to build rapport with, the elemental energy, and place it down in front of you. And if you're a beginner, you're going to have problems focusing in. And that's why I like to use symbology to help you. Because I found that for me, if I was using a candle, which is very much described, I think, in Buckland's Blue Book or something like that, to stare at a candle, to stare at the flame. For me, it was more color oriented. I could capture the color more than I could the actual flame of the candle, which helped aid me later on with thought forms and everything else. And that's what you're learning here, is how to use your thought forms to benefit you. But at the same time, you are also focusing on building a rapport with the energies that are of creative nature. Earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. You are the spirit, That's where you use a white candle, and also the emblem that has the circle. But if you notice in that circle, there's 8 spokes. Sabbats. So it's interrelated. And you notice that there's a round circle. That is you. You are the center of that spoke, of that wheel of the year. Very important to recognize that within your practice. Very important. But what I would like for people to do during this lesson, if they want, is to actually start creating energy balls and focusing in on the color and the element. You want to feel it. You want to evoke, but not invoke. You never invoke elementals, okay? There's a difference between elemental energy and the ancient ones. neither of which you want to invoke, point blank, because you don't know what's going to happen when you do that or what's going to happen, especially if you're magically talented.
Oh,
But, as you go through this and you start creating, you start praying toward these quarters, reach out. Don't be afraid to ask to feel them. You want them to caress your skin. Do this with each quarter and take your time. Take 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, but keep the practice ongoing throughout your witchcraft life. Once you start, it's almost like a drug. You won't stop. And after a while, what happens is when you start to create the circle and you're evoking the element of air, fire, water, and earth, is that not only have you made friends with the elementals, but you also will see them into your circle when you create your magical circle. A magical circle is like a beach ball or a basketball, volleyball, baseball, however you want to, call it. When you create your circle and you start evoking these elementals, you will see them show up into your circle. But I also want to point out to people that this is what I use for an elemental bowl. I don't know if you guys can see it. It has the symbol of the goddess on it. Oop, yeah, I'm no good at this. But, you can place those up on your altar instead of using the symbols that I was showing. Just don't be afraid. Experiment. One of the biggest things that I was taught early on by a Kabbalist, he called everything experiments. Don't be afraid to experiment, but also be very cautious and protect yourself. That's why I tell every new beginner, cast salt, cast it into a circle and protect yourself. Cleanse yourself before you do any of this, before and after. It's very important for people to realize that if you're a beginner and you don't protect yourself and you don't ask these elementals to go away, they can wreak havoc.
oh, absolutely.
And a lot of people don't realize that. They read like Scott Cunningham or Buckland. These things are very real. So always dismiss them and never ever sit there and go, and I've heard this many times, is go if you will, stay if you must. Don't do that, because you do want them to go away. You don't want them hanging out in your house. Imagine the element of fire in your house, and all of a sudden your house burns up, or you start burning your food because, magic's magic.
Your AC stops working, you'd be surprised.
Yeah. Or the element of water. I don't know why I'm spraying. Why is my house flooding? Why is the stream flooding outside? Why is it raining so much? We have to take responsibility to ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
But the biggest point that I want to make with people is that your spirit's so important. Let it bathe within that. The spirit above, the spirit below. Realize that you are the conduit of all magic. When you are learning creation, and that's what you're doing, you're learning about creation. You are learning how to harness the elementals, the primal energies. Take your time, learn it. there's no rush in learning the craft, witchcraft. There's no time limit, because what we don't learn in this life, we will learn in the next. I firmly believe in reincarnation, so we shouldn't rush it. It's like I tell people, yeah, you may get your third initiation, but what do you do from here? And they're looking at me from direction. I tell them, well, you got to dance the great dance. And they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? I go, become part of that ritual, become part of the Sabbats, become part of the seasonal turn of the wheel of the year. Understand your magic, elementals, ancient ones, circle creation. Very important. Learn the lore of your rituals. Know what each part of that spoke of the wheel of the year is. Become part of that. But I also want to point out to people that when they are learning about elemental magic, why not go outside in the spring? Good time of year. Go out, pluck yourself a piece of sweetgrass, put it in your mouth, earth. Go out to the pond or the stream, skip a rock, see the ripples. Those ripples go on forever, even though that they disappear to the visual eye. Become part of that water. Excuse me. Make yourself a fire, a bale fire. Do it safely and feel those energies coming off it, not the heat, the energies. In other words, don't stick your hands so close to the fire that you burn yourself, but feel it. Let it come into your hands. Draw it into yourself. The same way with air. What are you going to do for air? What's a good idea for air? Well, hey, let's go fly a kite. That's what I used to do with the kids. Align yourself, attune yourself, feel that air, become that air. Very important things for people to realize is that sometimes simplicity is the best way to go, because from simplicity comes higher magic, where it reverberates within you. In your old age, you should be able to cast a circle, not from just walking around and taking your athame or your wand and casting the circle. You see it in your mind's eye. You create that magical energy ball and you throw it at the floor and it spreads out around you, and all of a sudden you're within a sphere. To me, that's what works for me. But to somebody else, they may not do it that way. But it works for me. I feel the energies from it. I see it. I can touch it. The cats will play with it. These are important lessons. What happens from that point? Oh, you bless your circle with the elementals. You call to them. What happens after that point? Well, your circle should come to life. The energy should become almost dogmatic, where it makes you weak to the knees. That to me is important. When you call forth to the ancient ones, I call them Grigori. Everybody's going to see them different. But those lessons of aligning yourself with the elementals build you up to that point. But yeah, brother, you got some stuff that you wanted to talk about. I've yapped the ears off a wooden Indian here, so your turn.
Well, I wanted to give everybody a refresher if they didn't know about the elements and their correspondences, and then a couple ways to connect with them. So to start off, we have the element of earth. Its direction is north. Its season is winter. The colors are green, brown, gold, and silver. Astrologically, that is Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And then some of the magical uses for the earth element are grounding, protection, stability, prosperity and abundance, manifestation, and physical healing. And then the altar tools are salt or soil, the pentacle or stone, uh, physical dirt, crystals, bones, seed or leaves, uh, scissors, string for binding and grounding, wooden tools, staves, wands, and then metal statuary. Crystals like hematite, smoky quartz, moss agate, obsidian, jasper, and then herbs like patchouli, sage, vervain, verveter, cypress, pine, and mugwort. And then your tarot correspondences are the Empress, the Hermit, and the Suit of Pentacles, or coins, depending on your deck. Uh, the element of air, which is East, representing spring. The colors are yellow, white, pale blue, and sometimes light green. Um, Astrological signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And then our magical uses are communication, inspiration, thought and clarity, knowledge and wisdom, divination, and movement. Altar tools, of course, incense, feathers, wands, bells, uh, quills or pens, parchment, wind chimes and fans. And then crystals, we have fluorite, citrine, clear quartz, blue lace agate, sodalite, and angelite. For herbs, we have lavender, lemongrass, peppermint, mullein, elderflower, and verbinia. And it's associated with the swords, the fool, and the star in tarot. Then we have fire, which is the south, associated with summer, red, orange, yellow, and gold. And of course, our fiery signs Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Fire brings passion, transformation, willpower, and courage, creativity. It brings banishing, motivation, and new creation. Its tools are candles, athames or blades, charcoal, flint, matches,
Yep.
and then we have carnelian, sunstone, fire agate, garnet, and jasper for some crystals, cinnamon, ginger, clove, rosemary, chilies, and bay leaves for herbs. And then its suit is the wand, the tower, and the strength card.
Yep. Yep.
And we have water, which is west, the season of autumn, blues, indigos, and silver. Its signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And then its uses would be healing, uh, emotion and intuition, dream work, psychic work, love and compassion, and then release and flow. Uh, Altar tools would be the chalice or cauldron, seashells, bowl of water, or mirrors. And then I have amethyst, aquamarine, moonstone, lapis lazuli, and larimar for crystals. Herbs would be jasmine, chamomile, willow, lotus, valerian, and blue vervain. And then we have the tarot cards, the Suit of Cups, the High Priestess, and the Moon. And then we have Spirit, or Aether, some people may call it. And its direction is the center, above, within. And its season, all of them. Colors, white, violet, rainbow, or white. Or I said white twice there. Uh, it's associated with all signs or no signs. And it brings us unity and balance, divine connections, our soul purpose, astral journeying, and transcendence work. Some tools you can associate with this are clear quartz spheres, sacred spirals, or triquetras. You can make a spirit candle, which would be like white, chocolate colored. I've also seen purple in some cases. Bells or singing bowls are often used. And then some of our crystals are selenite, labradorite, Herkimer diamond, clear quartz, and amethyst. And our herbs are frankincense, myrrh, mugwort, angelica, and hyssop. And it is the cards of the magician, judgment, and the world.
Wow.
Now that we've covered what some of their correspondences are, we do have I have some evocations and chants for them as well.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Go for it.
For Earth, we have the evocation Guardians of the North, Spirits of Soil and Stone, Roots deep, ancient bones, grant us strength and steady ground, Earth be with us all around. And then the chant to bring in the Earth energy, root me deep and hold me strong, in Earth's embrace I do belong.
Yep.
And then for Air, I have winds of the east, breath of dawn, whispers of spirit, worlds reborn. Carry thoughts, bring clarity clear, air be present, gather near. And then our chant, air I breathe, air I sing, in your flow I spread my wings.
Totally awesome.
Fire we have, flame of the south, burning bright, ignite our power, spark our light, bring the courage to transform, fire guide us through the storm. And then our chant, blaze and burn, rise and rise, I hold the flame behind my eyes. And then our last two, I have water, which is waters of the west, deep and wise. Tears and tides, dreams that rise, flow through us, cleanse and feel. Water gentle, bless and heal. And then a washing chant, wash me clean, help me feel. In your flow, I learn to heal. And then spirit is our last one. Spirit of center, still and bright, web of all the eternal light. You who hold the woven whole, awaken truth within the soul. And then our chant, spirit within, spirit above, bind together in power and love.
That's cool. That's cool. I try to get all those things, pictures up for people so that they could see it.
Oh, you're fine.
I think it's fascinating how we all see it.
hmm
And when we're in circle, that we actually feel it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a, what is that? Sieves, gnomes,
Mhm.
undines,
Sylph node undines and salamanders. Some people use
salamander.
phoenixes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah, and
people
then
don't realize that those are all part of it, you know.
mhm. Sometimes they're called guardians, sometimes they're called towers. Um, some traditions call the specific creature themselves, and that's what my tradition does. Is we call forth a representative from each of the elements um, that we've made contracts with.
Yeah,
So you're calling in your four friends.
yeah, yeah. But I think it's very important for us to do our best as individuals when we're working with the, you know, the quarters. I'm being a Pacific toward, you know, elementals right now, or we are,
hmm
but it also counts to the ancient ones, you know, that we we build a rapport, and that our imaginations, our thoughts become poignant, so that when we are doing our invocations and we're building our alignments, you know, that we want to feel them. Like if I like I could reach over here and grab a hold of Chrissy. I
hmm
want to feel the element of air. I want to
Oh yeah.
feel the element of fire. I don't want to get burnt by fire, but I
Mhm.
want to feel that heat. I want to feel the coolness of the oceans, of the lakes and the rivers. You want to feel it pressing across your face, your hands.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, they get lost in that because
Oh yeah.
they, they make it too complicated because they're
Mhm.
used to their mundane life. They have to see and touch everything like it's a physical object, but yet their subconscious is what actually helps. It's like Raven Grimassi has said in the past, is to use your magical mind.
Mm.
When you step into a circle, let your magical mind
Oh
take
yeah.
over.
Meditation really does help.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
Though you can do it with any of the senses too. If you're incapable of picturing things in your mind, you can always sit there with the physical representations
yeah,
and, you know, sit there and put your hand in a bowl of water and contemplate how that feels, the coolness, the wet, put your hand in soil and feel the earth and the warmth and the glow from a candle and the breeze across your face or
yeah,
incense smoke drifting across. I mean, there's so many ways to incorporate these elements in. And I do agree with you that one of the things that I did when I first started out is I did elemental altars. And I think I did them for a month at a time. So I would set it up where I would put up representations for each of the elements. So I started with earth and then moved my way through. So I had an earth altar with crystals, and then I had herbs for the association, and then I would do works that involve the earth element by itself, and then so on and so forth.
oh,
Hopefully, these classes would be possible for a written lesson so we could follow along. I do have mine written down. I will be posting them in our Facebook group. Um, I have exercises and all of the chants and everything written down so that you guys get copies of those too. But yes, we should start doing that beforehand.
yeah,
That
yeah.
way that they hand out our syllabus.
I think for me, I'm so used to giving everything orally, to pass it down orally. It like with Sandy, she's one of our students out in Colorado, but we had to move away. So, for them to get physical things, it would have to be through email. And I hate putting everything magic to digital because you know what happens with magic and electronics. It just doesn't always collide
Eh, it
correctly.
depends. I have more like the stuff that I make for this. I'm more than happy for people to use. Obviously, if it's something that was oathbound or from like my deep in my grimoire, it would be hand distributed. But um, I have no issues sharing some the things that I create for this.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, while
Mhm.
we're talking,
Yeah, Kim M says that would be awesome to see something like that. You know,
if you are on our Facebook page, I've just uploaded the notes that I went over
sorry,
for.
guys, I didn't do the notes. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. No, I've uploaded those, and then I'm finalizing. Um, I have a 5-day elemental program that I'll be uploading here, which has spells for each of the elements, energy work for the elements, and then some notes on the bottom for some homework, creating elemental altars, repeating the meditations for a week, um, designing spells for the different elements, and then um, options to record things in your Book of Shadows if you haven't. Um, so I've got a couple things to add in there. I just gotta finish signing it and stuff.
Yeah, Yeah, the last time that we did a show like this, um, we did a show and it was for this lady out on the East Coast, and she sent me a thank you card
Hmm.
because after she did, sit there and listen to us, she actually started making things come to life.
Mm-hmm.
And she sent a card right here, right here.
Oh.
Denise is her name, and she said thank you, and I want to pass on that thank you to you because he was part of it. I think Mike was, he was in that class, and you know, I can't express to people, be imaginative. Sit there if you don't want to use candles, like Nick said, find alignments in nature that you could set
Mhm.
as representation at your quarters or on your altars, like these elemental bowls, that I use. I put it on my altar. I put my pinnacle or my cauldron or whatever's representing the center, and I put these elemental bowls and I put representations within them, whether it's colored stones, herbs, or feathers, something to represent that element. We should pay them homage.
And I
We
do
should,
want to state there is a difference in your practice of calling in the elements to balance yourself before doing spell work and working with a specific element in the spell work. So the reason that you see people calling the corners, bringing in the elements, is to balance the practitioner,
yeah,
um, which prepares you to do your spell work. And then you can work with spells on a singular alignment to get closer to that element, or in more advanced cases, you can combine elements to change the outcome, um, or to increase the spell's effect. So, working with the element of air and fire, bring something quickly, um,
yeah,
good for banishments, fire for removals, earth to bind things. There's
yeah,
so many, and you can cross them and do some crazy things. Uh, the Kioria tradition actually has a whole segment on that. We might do that one later. I'll have to pull up my notes from those. But they have a whole magic system that involves unbalancing the circle
yeah,
for magic, which was really cool.
yeah. I think it's important that people learn this so that when they do magic, do spells, um, that they can relate to it more.
Yeah,
And that,
it doesn't all
like
have to
for
be
me,
candle spells.
it's like for me, I use candles a lot. I use minerals a lot, you know, amber, you know, quartz, amethyst,
Oh
moonstone,
yeah.
bloodstone. I use all of these, smoky
Hmm.
quartz, whatever. I got a whole box full of them that I use. It's my own private little, what I call my little crystal hoard. You know,
Hmm.
it's my treasure trove.
I
And
got my display pieces, my working pieces, and
yeah,
then I've got permanent altar pieces that they stay there as amplifiers and elemental representatives. And
yeah, exactly. And a lot of people think that they have to go out and spend like $50, $60 on these
you
crystals.
don't need to. I
No,
mean,
I,
if you
I just
truly
buy
enjoy
little,
them.
I buy them those little chips that you see every once in a while.
Hmm.
Like when I go out to Colorado, there's a place down there in Manitou Springs
Oh
that I
yeah.
go to. There's a store there that has all these little pieces of chips of quartz and amethyst and tiger's eye and all that. And I'll buy a handful of those
Oh yeah, I got my little. Ooh, get my green
The
screen.
background's kind of showing through there, but
There we
yeah,
go.
there you
I
go.
got my. This is one of my. I have a lot of rocks. I'll just preface that I do collect them as a hobby as well, and for my witchcraft. But
Yeah.
uh, it is not necessary to have giant, expensive museum pieces. They are absolutely gorgeous. Do not get me wrong. Um, but for regular spell work, you don't need giant crystals. They're if you can get your hands on them, you come by them, you get them as an anniversary present, something like that. Use them, but
Yeah.
you do not need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get into witchcraft.
No, that's see, when I first got into witchcraft, I thought you had to buy your wand, buy your athame, your ritual robe. I was very naive when I got started. What would you say? Practicing witchcraft on a full time basis.
Hmm.
You know, and a lot of people are that way. It's like for these elementals, you can actually go out and buy yourself incense to align
Oh yeah,
help you align for each of the quarters. You don't have to go out
or
and buy
make it.
expensive, stuff to do
Oh
this.
yeah,
Just buy the herb and some charcoal tabs. Do
herb
it that way.
charcoal.
Or like,
Uh, you can get the little oil simmer things with the tea lights. Put a little bit of coconut oil with your herbs on the top of it and some essential oils. Um, or you can get incense at Walmart, the Dollar Tree. You can get them online in bulk. Um, you can get it about anywhere. Or if you have some smoke shops, gas stations sell incense too. But get what you like, what smells good to you. There's
yeah,
all kinds. You can make yours. You don't have to buy crystals. I guarantee you that you have crystals all around your state, country, wherever you live. You can look into that and do rock hounding. You can find everything for your magical practice if you so choose for free. Um, there's not a price limit on it. Actually, I think when you find things, it's more special.
yeah. That's the way it is for me. It's like for me. When I think of ritual, there's been many a times where I've gone out and gathered like acorns and you
Hmm.
know oak leaves, and stuff like that. And like I used to grow my own roses, you know, a status symbol for the goddess, and I used to
Hmm.
dry them out and use them in my incense. A lot of people
Yep.
don't realize that, that hey, you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money. You just go out and forage in nature. Just plant it beforehand.
Oh yeah.
You know?
I love in the towards the late spring, early summer, and in the fall. We'll go out hiking, and I take a plant identification book with me, and
Yeah.
we forage for wild edibles and for witchcraft purposes. And I bring a pouch with me, and I'll sustainably take maybe an eighth of what's available for a plant if I need it, and harvest and bring them back home and try them out and
Yeah. I
jar everything up and label it. And
I think it's important, that people realize that, like the description I gave before,
Mhm.
about going out, putting a piece of grass in your mouth,
Oh yeah.
represents earth.
Hmm.
You don't have to go out and spend hundreds or even above $50. About the most costly thing that you should spend your money on is candles, actually.
Hmm.
You
And
know,
there's some great. If anybody needs, I can give you websites for some bulk candles. My secret hack. Uh, the two places that I go to buy candles are the Chinese grocery store. I buy the Buddhist and ancestor temple candles, They're like 150 count candles for like $6.
Yeah.
Or Shabbos candles. It's a box of 75 and they're like $7 a box. And those are
Yeah.
4 hour, they're 4 hour candles, so they burn 4 times as long as a chime candle.
Yeah. I
Or
like using those chime candles
mm,
because it's quick. I don't have to worry about it. You know, I can do my spell work, and within like an hour or less, you know, that candle is burned up,
oh yeah,
and it
it's very
works.
spell. 'Cause you can even use birthday candles, depending on the shorter the candle burns, time wise, the quicker the spell goes out into the universe. If you have a bigger ask, bigger candles sometimes are needed. So like 7 day candles and things like that. Or you can burn multiple chime candles over the course of a week or so if you need. But or there's ways to do it without burning candles too. You can sit there with sigils and intent, and you don't have to spend money on candles if you can't burn them. Because I know some places, some apartments, you can't burn candles or anything,
Yeah.
which I
It,
thought was weird.
it's like what you did here.
Yep.
You did that yourself. You put
Yeah.
your own energies into it.
Yeah, that's the sigil for air.
And it's just like this. This
Mhm.
this is spirit. You know, this represents spirit. But it also reminds me of much more. You know,
Mhm.
the Sabbats, the 8 Sabbats, the 4
Oh yeah.
major, the 4 minor Sabbats. You know, these things are important because they get ingrained into you. After a while, you just you know, and you don't need no prompts. You know, eventually you're not going to use these sigils that often. You're
Mhm.
going to visualize it in front of you.
Oh yeah. When I made those specifically, the worksheet that I put on our files on the Facebook page, the the sigils, I'll upload those as well. But those are made to go with the invoctions that I have on the worksheet. So these are made specifically for those.
Yeah, yeah. I think that, you know, everything that we spoke of tonight is so important. So important. You know, from where you was talking about, I make elemental altars, which I think is a really great idea. I
Hmm.
did that in the past. I've spent hours in circle, casting a circle. And just, you don't have to call all the elemental spirits to your circle. You can do them one at a time.
Hmm.
What I also recommend is, like for me, I am air. You know,
Yeah, we didn't touch on personal
I'm
correspondence or
well,
personal element.
we could do that in the future, but you know, a lot of people don't realize, hey, if you're hot headed, which is south,
Mhm.
maybe I should go to the element of earth,
Or water.
my alignment with that to bring a
Mhm.
more of a balance within their lives. You know, I'm not saying that everything that we're talking about tonight will work for the grand populace, but I want people to be imaginative.
Mhm.
Do it. Turn on your magical mind. Turn on your words and do your best. Sit
Oh
there
yeah.
with your quarter calls. Write them out. Rewrite them. Make it into poetry.
Oh
Make it
yeah.
into something that brings
Mhm.
tears to your eyes. Because when you start doing that, that is when you're going to get that emotional connection with the elementals and also the the ancient ones. Sorry, stumbling upon my words, but you know, it's important for everybody to recognize that within themselves, their divine right.
Yeah.
Let
Well,
that
and one
spirit
thing.
flow, man. Just go
Mhm.
with it. You know, it's so important.
Oh yeah. And if you guys have us on our Facebook page within the Cauldron, our Facebook group. Show us your elemental altars, your elemental spells. Like, let's see what you guys come up with. I hope that, us talking about this inspires you guys to dive back into the elements and show us what you got.
Well, what's important about this is there's a difference between low magic, which a lot of people learn, but what if you kick it up a notch?
Oh yeah. Like we can get crazy with it.
You know,
You can
up a notch.
use
If if one way doesn't work for you, go another way. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk across you. Go ahead, brother.
oh yeah, you can get crazy with the elements.
Yeah.
Combining water and earth, and if you take like a piece of sandstone and let it flow underwater and use that to physically break away the obstacles in your life or problems, people, things like that, you start getting into higher types of magic versus here's my candle spell. I'm going to burn this.
Yeah.
Like there's so much more depth and flavor that you can have in your magical practice.
A lot of people don't see that. And why does people do that? Because they get so book bound. You
Hmm.
know, they become book bound. That's the way I was when I was a Christian. I became book bound. Everything in that book is it. There's nothing outside of it. There's no reasoning outside of that. It's like Buckland's Blue Book. If you look at the candle magic, it tells you all about that.
Hmm.
But how do I relate my spirit into it so that what I am doing takes more of a spiritual sense and the
Hmm.
energy work that you put into it comes to life. And that's what I stress a lot to people. Bring your spirit into it. Make your words and your actions
Oh yeah.
spiritual. Go beyond the pages. It ain't just about, I'm raising my hand going, ooh. No, bring that energy, feel that energy,
Oh yeah.
embrace that magic, that elemental magic for wrap it around you because when you're doing magic spells, you're going to relate a lot to elemental.
Oh yeah. And having a good working relationship with the elementals is beneficial in a lot of ways. Um,
Yes.
they not only help with spell work, but they can help with things within their domains, protections. You befriend the house spirit or the fire spirits. Maybe they'll stop a fire in your house before it spreads too far, or the water spirits may spare you some flood damage. Um, we can hope through working with these spirits that maybe they bless us a little back.
Yes. But what's really important about this lesson is that when you get to the point where you are casting your circle and you start calling these elemental beings to your circle, you will see it within your circle.
Oh yeah,
You'll actually see them going around you.
I have a
And
funny story about that. I
I
brought my brother-in-law to his first circle, and we were calling the quarters, and we start with um, we're going around the elements. We get to air, and the wind picks up and blows through our canopy as we're invoking air, and then we go through earth, and it stops and gets calm, and you can just feel a hum go through everybody. And then we go through fire, and then you just feel this warmth radiating, like the people around you are getting warmer. And we go through and then invoke spirit, and then the patrons of the ceremony, and send everything out. And then he just looks at me and he's like, I've read about this and thought that you just said the words. And he's like, watching you guys actually do this and see and feel the elements move through people, he's like, this isn't what I expected it to be.
yeah,
And he was
it,
just
it,
flabbergasted.
A lot of people don't realize that it could be healing for your spirit, for your morale, for your mentality of who you are. You know, a lot of people don't realize that the elements can actually help heal yourself.
Oh yeah.
That is why we ground and center ourselves before all magical workings. That is
Mhm.
why before all magical workings that we should cleanse ourselves,
Oh yeah.
you know, because the elementals, they're so important to our magical workings, because that is what actually helps you step between worlds.
Hmm.
That's why I sit there and go, hey, we need to do a class on elementals.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, it's very important for us to realize as magic practitioners that the elements are part of the gateway to step in between worlds.
Hmm.
And a lot of witches don't realize that. They just read one book, two books. They don't do cross studies, which I spent years doing, cross study this, cross study that, go
Oh
from
yeah.
one to another book, carry on conversations with many different witches, and taking it and trying to put proof to the pudding of
Hmm.
does this way actually work? You know, yes or no?
Oh
Does
yeah.
it work for me? I got to find a different way.
Hmm. And
You know,
backtrace. Like if you have an author you like, go in and read the bibliographies and find out where they got the information, and then I go and buy those books or find those books, and then find the context of where they learned that, and then um, physical teachers and asking questions and
yeah,
videos and meditations and just the this is how I do this, how do you do this, and then keep going and just ping pong ball back and forth. I love it so
Christina,
much.
Christina, you're right about the elementals. You don't have to be a witch to have a correspondence with them, to have what I call Grigor.
Hmm.
You don't have to be be a witch. You can work with them. You can be a Christian and work with them.
Oh yeah.
It's
Christian
important.
with the
Yeah,
elements,
it's like she
Native
says.
Americans do,
You just need to
the
be be spiritual. They are spiritual guidance.
there's a reason, yeah, like Christians use the rite of baptism, which is working with the element of water to cleanse you.
Yeah,
We have church incense and prayer candles, and they have um, the sacrament with the wafers and wine, earth,
yeah.
and you have air with their hymnals and choir. Uh,
Mm,
they're in a lot of places. You just have to look.
yeah,
And
mm,
if you want to get particular, the church has specific incense blends for different purposes. They have their own correspondence list.
yeah, they do. But I think it's interesting how we do get lost in our practice. It's like a person who works their way up to a third initiate.
Hmm.
They think that they learned all of it, everything about witchcraft within their tradition, but they forget one thing, that we should go off tangents
Hmm.
and expand our magical knowledge and expand our magical practice. Because the more that you do that, the more, I hate to say this, the more powerful that you become. I call it, you begin to learn about higher magics. It's like looking at a pinnacle. I sat there for years and years, looked at that pinnacle, realizing, yes, this is it. This the end all of of our practice. This incorporates everything that we practice within witchcraft,
Hmm.
but it's much more. It's a balance of all living things. It is the balance
Absolutely.
of ourself and the universe.
Ooh, that's a
It
good
is the
comment.
greatest representation of the cosmos. And we don't see it a lot of times
Mhm.
because we think that earth, air, fire, water, and that's the representation. That's the end all thing. Earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. And it's much more than that.
Oh yeah, and that's it goes back to traditional witchcraft and folk magic in a way that working directly with the elements and their representations in spirits as teachers,
Yeah.
um, because there's a large responsibility for those paths to create their own spell work, and they're often very unique to the practitioner.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's nothing wrong with learning from books, the internet, things like that, but sometimes going back to the basics, you may learn something or a technique that you haven't learned before or that may be unique to that spirit. And
Yeah.
if you get permission, maybe you can share that because, witchcraft and the subsequent practices are living traditions. And part of our duty as practitioners is to not only carry on the existing, but to create new.
Yeah. Well, it's like this image here. You know, we look at the pinnacle, we see spirit, water, fire, earth, and air. They all have a point. Okay. They all have a place upon this, what I would call a Kabbalic symbol, one of Solomon's seals. Okay. But what about the very center? The very, very center of that.
That's the self.
And a lot of people don't realize that. I think Raven Grimassi called it the hollow. Okay.
Hmm.
And I think it's very important that people look at these and question them. Don't be a lamb. Don't be a lamb following a shepherd. You become the shepherd. You become the magic practitioner that you want. Question everything. Like I said, tangents. Tangents are very important. Because what I found in my magical practice was when I was learning about earth, air, fire, and water, throughout my years of study, I would go back and I would reflect. What do they mean to me today?
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think a lot of us, we become indoctrinated. I hate to say that, but we become indoctrinated with saying, my way is the only way.
Hmm. We go back into that dogmatic
Yeah, we
mindset,
we
or
we as witches have that habit of going back to the dogmatic, even though that we say that we're not dogmatic, we're open-minded. We need to look. It's like with me looking at Christ or the Gandhi or somebody like that or the Buddhas of today, and I do cross-referencing
Mhm.
of how they practice their spirituality. How does the Taoist practice their spirituality? Is there a spirituality even within it? You know, we have to be open minded when we are practicing. We always should go back and expand to become better magicians. I think that would be the right word, to
Mhm.
be the better witch. We just can't stand stagnant. We have to blaze our path as a whole, but we also have to blaze our path as an individual for our spirituality so that we can transcend.
Yep.
Ah, yeah, spiritual videos. I did like, yeah, yeah, just don't become dogmatic in our practices. Spiritual videos like what Christina here is. saying, yeah, why not? Learn about different traditions and how they view the elementals. They might call it by a different name. They might color code things different than what I do or
Oh yeah.
what it does. Be
The
open-minded. Be
Kyoria
open.
tradition, their elements are different. They're spun differently than in other forms of witchcraft.
Yeah, it's like Wendy Morris who came on with Chrissy and him before. You've met her through video. Um, her idea of what the elemental colors is different than mine.
Well, and you even have the seven elementals in Druidry, which are poised differently, but they include the three currents of the sun, the moon, and the other world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we should be broad-minded. Like I come from a very traditional sense, but throughout the years I have become eclectic because I am following a path of variety. To be broad-minded and not to judge one another about their spiritual path. I find it quite fascinating when I'm talking to somebody from the Gardanian tradition.
Mm-hmm.
I find it very enlightening when I'm listening to Wendy Morrison when she's talking about her Celtic path.
Oh yeah.
When you're talking about folk magic, which is very similar to me and Chrissy's path, but be open-minded about what you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important, you know.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think this has been a very interesting show tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But
Join us April 22nd is the next one.
yeah, yeah. I think that we should end it here in a few minutes. But
22nd is the next one.
give me a second here. Chrissy's giving me prompts. April 22nd is going to be our next class. And I'd like to, invite everybody to join us and like and subscribe. And thank you so much for joining us. And God bless you all. Thank you, Nico.
Thank you.
Don't go off stage yet. Chris, here in a minute. We could talk afterwards. But
Yep.
love and light to everybody. And thank you very
Blessings,
much.
guys. And don't forget, find our Facebook page if you aren't already on there. It is Within the Cauldron Facebook group. You can find us there. We have daily prompts, educational files. We have a bunch of different chats available. A lot of cool stuff in there, guys.
Yeah.
We have Omni Collective. In my understanding, there are 12 elements of magic: earth, air, fire, water, spirit, sound, light, dark, life, death, plants, and time.
You're correct. But
there's more than that too. But
yeah, we're talking
you
about
can expand it so much.
yeah, a little more advanced, but I had to throw that up there real quick. But
oh yeah,
everybody, love and light. May the goddess be with you, and have a beautiful evening. Blessed be.
Blessings, guys.
Great goddess, I am so thankful to have you guiding me, protecting me. I am so thankful to have you guiding me, protecting me. I am great goddess, I am so thankful to have